The Arcvith Armada hovered in Earth's upper orbit like a storm that had already passed, its vast black armored vessels blotting out the stars. Even from the charred plains below, you could see them, a constellation of conquerors basking in their triumph. For centuries, they had swept across this spiral arm of the galaxy, subjugating and assimilating every species that dared resist. To them, humanity was simply another primitive civilization that would soon be nothing but a footnote in their annals. The last transmission they had intercepted from Earth was an audio file, only one sentence, spoken in a tone too calm to be believed. Leave now. This is your only warning, they laughed. They always laughed. In the long halls of the flagship Voraclex, officers in crystalline cuirasses debated how best to parcel out the rich mineral veins of the human homeworld. Stratego Zareth considered the planetary subjugation an accomplished fact. He had read the intelligence reports. Humans were clever, yes, adaptable, but hopelessly fragmented. Their governments had fallen to infighting before the first plasma bombardment ever struck their cities. Their orbital defenses were little more than relics, obsolete and underpowered. Their fleets had scattered in the first hour. Zareth had seen this pattern 100 times. And he had seen what followed. Once the illusion of power was broken, resistance became a matter of mopping up fanatics and scavengers. So he dismissed the message as bluster, the pitiful defiance of a dying species. He didn't know that in the ancient vaults beneath the Appalachian Mountains, a last contingency had been triggered. On the surface, all was desolate. Burned-out cities smoldered under drifting ash. The once bustling highways were choked with wreckage and silence. From orbit, it appeared that humanity was on its knees. The Arcvith deployed automated harvest crawlers and search teams in gleaming shuttles. As they fanned out across the continents, they recorded every landmark, every ruin, each sign that another civilization had been added to their tally of dominion. In the command chambers of the Voraclex, Zareth met with his war council. Holograms of Earth rotated between them, mineral scans, genetic databanks, the layout of planetary infrastructure. They spoke of reclamation schedules and containment protocols. They argued about which regions to prioritize for resource extraction. All the while, none of them thought to question why the humans had been so quiet. At first, the signs were subtle. A harvest team dispatched to the ruins of New York sent a routine status report, and then nothing. A pair of orbiting corvettes drifted silently off course, their engines cold, their crews unresponsive. The Arcvith logistics crews attributed it to interference from the planet's wrecked communication satellites. A minor nuisance. No one imagined it could be anything more, but in the shadows of Earth's devastation, stories had begun to flicker, like old embers catching wind. Even before the war, humanity was legend. In the hidden places of the galaxy, among exiles and smugglers, there were whispers that long ago, the humans had obliterated an empire 10 times the size of the Arcvith. That they had buried the evidence themselves, erasing it from archives and memory alike. Some claimed it was myth. Others claimed it was the reason no other species had ever tried to conquer Earth. Zareth knew these rumors, of course. He had studied them and dismissed them as human arrogance. Yet there were records he could not find, periods of time where human history simply stopped, whole centuries unaccounted for. His analysts explained it away. Data corruption, lost records, apocalyptic wars that ended with humanity's civilization resetting itself. But now, in the vast quiet of the command deck, he felt something like a chill. He rose from his throne of glass and steel to study the live feed of the planet. There was a hush across the Arcvith frequencies, a growing unease among the command crews. It was too orderly, too still. He tapped his clawed fingers against the console, trying to pinpoint what felt so wrong. One of his junior strategists approached, cautious, voice low. "My lord, we are unable to re-establish contact with 2 more expedition teams. 6 detachments are now unresponsive. Should we initiate full orbital bombardment?" Zareth considered it. But orbital bombardment was final. It left nothing to harvest, no trophies to display before the Grand Sovereigns. The idea that the humans still posed any real threat seemed laughable. And yet another signal interruption flashed on his console. This time, it was the corvette Elanthus gone, its transponder vanishing mid-transmission without warning. There was no distress call, no sign of debris. Simply gone. He felt the hollow quiet of the deck deepen. Something tickled the back of his mind, a memory of that calm, human voice saying, "This is your only warning." And in that moment, though he would never admit it aloud, Zareth wondered if they had misunderstood entirely. He wondered if the humans had never been begging for mercy. Far below, buried beneath the poisoned skies, the first of humanity's hidden weapons stirred awake. Asterisk nightfall crept across the shattered continents, though night was only a matter of perspective now. Earth's upper atmosphere still glowed with drifting embers from the bombardment, and the Arcvith harvest fleets cast their own lurid pall over the land as they advanced. They moved in precise formation squadrons of armored transports settling onto ruined highways, insectal drones fanning out to catalog every relic of human civilization. On the southern rim of what had once been Chicago, Commander Varros stepped from the ramp of a gunship, breathing in the scorched air through his respirator. He was a pragmatist, less arrogant than many of his peers, and he knew well that no species went quietly. Even the weakest primitives had hidden claws. But as he surveyed the vast, empty cityscape, a part of him relaxed. It looked like all the others, broken, conquered, silent. "Scan frequencies again," he ordered, watching technicians set up. "Relay beacons among collapsed skyscrapers. I want full telemetry, environmental readings, any remaining energy signatures." The lead technician adjusted his sensor array, and a flicker of confusion passed across his face. "Sir, we're detecting power fluctuations in the subsurface layers." "Human survivors?" "Possibly, but the readings are inconsistent. It's like someone is routing power through conduits we can't map. The signals just stop." Varros frowned. It was the 7th anomaly reported in as many hours. First, harvest teams going silent. Then, orbital ships losing contact. Now infrastructure that shouldn't even be operational. He clicked his come to higher command. "This is Varros. Recommend deploying deeper scan protocols. We may be dealing with hidden bunkers or automated defense systems." The reply came, after a delay that made his skin prickle. "Acknowledged. Proceed with caution." He noticed something else then. On the cracked concrete ahead, the Arcvith drones had begun to hesitate. Their movement patterns jittered, slowed. A few simply stopped and powered down as if some unseen hand had stolen their will. Varros turned to his adjutant, demanding an explanation, but before any words came, the horizon brightened in an unnatural way brief, cold flashes like silent lightning far in the west. He raised a scope to his eyes. Through the magnification, he saw the outline of an Arcvith dropship, a massive fortress of alloy suspended over a dead city. For a heartbeat, it seemed to hang motionless. Then the hull imploded, folding in on itself as though crushed by an invisible fist. No explosion, no fire, just a total silent erasure. The craft vanished into its own collapsing mass. Varros lowered the scope. Around him, his troops were backing away from the phenomenon without being ordered. Even in a species as merciless as the Arcvith, instinct recognized something beyond comprehension. He tried to speak, but a new come signal overrode all others. It wasn't Arcvith. It was human. A voice distorted but eerily calm spoke in their own language. "You shouldn't have stayed." Varros clenched his jaw. "Is this a bluff?" He snapped at his adjutant. "Some remnant defense net?" The adjutant's face was pale behind his respirator. "Sir, with respect, the humans shouldn't be able to penetrate our com encryption." Varros didn't answer. He turned away, scanning the skyline. Shadows moved there, impossible shadows that flitted between the bones of skyscrapers too fast for the eye to track. He blinked and they were gone, but the sense of being watched, measured, didn't fade. Back aboard the flagship Voraclex, Stratego Zareth received the reports with mounting irritation. He had lost nearly a dozen detachments with no clear cause. He had tolerated confusion long enough. Begin full-spectrum bombardment of all major human urban zones, he ordered. I will not permit this insolence to continue. His command officers hesitated. My lord, with respect, if we destroy the infrastructure, we may lose any chance to recover their technologies or genetic stock. Zareth's glare could have frozen plasma. Did you not hear me? Obliterate them. As the order relayed, the Arcvith Armada repositioned. Hundreds of orbital lances oriented their emitters toward the surface. In that brief pause before the fire fell, something shifted across the main view screens, something that did not belong. A symbol bloomed against the black of space, projected in spectral light from the surface far below. A circular emblem with a stylized eagle clutching a lightning bolt. An ancient human military crest. No Arcvith could have known its full meaning, but the effect was the same as a blade drawn in a silent room. Zareth felt his second heart stutter once, then resume its rhythm. Destroy that signal, then the cities. Even as he spoke, chatter rippled with uneasy questions. Why the humans had chosen to display an obsolete insignia. Why they had remained silent until now. Why their power grids were activating. Beneath the wreckage, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a single doubt began to grow. Had humanity been defeated at all? Far below, in bunkers that predated the Arcvith Empire itself, men and women watched their instruments tick upward. Thermal readings, target locks, confirmation codes. They had waited generations for this, while the Arcvith prepared to fire. Humanity prepared to hunt. Rain fell over the carcass of old Tokyo. Not real rain, but the acrid downpour born of scorched skies and chemical ash. The Arcvith soldiers stationed there didn't notice. Their armor filtered the toxins. Their optics scanned the ruins for heat signatures, movement, sound, nothing, only silence and the slow crumbling of a once great human city. Then, somewhere deep in the lower districts, a sudden power surge. A flicker in the grid. Sergeant Calvex turned to his patrol. Energy spike, sub-level 12, investigate. 3 scouts advanced. Moments later, their feeds went black. No warning. No gunfire. No screens, just silence. Calvex cursed and raised his weapon, activating a combat drone for reconnaissance. The drone hovered through a hollow shell of a subway tunnel, infrared scanning in all directions. It found nothing until it turned a corner. Then, a human face, illuminated for only a frame, stared back from the dark. A man, still, calm, wearing armor not seen in centuries, jet black, matte, seamless. The drone tried to scan him, failed, no signal, no temperature, no data. Then, static. The feed collapsed. Cal single quotes Vex didn't know what hit him. Neither did the rest of his squad. At 0600 Galactic time, 17 Arcvith patrols, across 4 continents, disappeared in unison. Above Earth, on the command bridge of the Voraclex, Stratego Zareth stared at the live data feed like it was a personal betrayal. His face was pale, hollow. How are they doing this? He muttered. One of the analysts, young, efficient, now visibly shaken, pointed at a series of erratic telemetry spikes. We've discovered remnants of an underground data grid. It predates our records. Fully autonomous adaptive routing. We think the humans activated a pre-war defense network. That's impossible, Zareth snapped. Their infrastructure was primitive. The analyst didn't look up. It's not just infrastructure. It's strategy. Sir, they're drawing us in, hurting our forces. Hurting? Zareth leaned forward, talons digging into the armrest. Explain. We've recompiled mission loss data. The detachments that vanished, they weren't random. They were the ones furthest from orbit, deepest into human territory. Isolated, vulnerable. Zareth's breath slowed. His minds raced. Both biological and cybernetic. This was never disorganized resistance, he whispered. It's a coordinated campaign. On the other side of the planet, inside a bunker 3 kilometers beneath Nevada desert sands, Commander Raina Miles lowered her visor. The helmet sealed with a whisper of pressure and an audible hiss. "Status?" she asked. "All teams in position." "Contact confirmed on 17 fronts," her second-in-command replied. "Execute Obsidian Protocol. Target their supply relays and communication nodes. Leave no trace." Across the planet, from the ruins of Johannesburg to the underlevels of Buenos Aires, humanity's ghost fleets began to rise. The Archviv had believed Earth to be silent. They hadn't realized it was listening. The Obsidian Protocol had been. Born during Earth's first contact, War, a last resort contingency that would activate only if humanity was about to lose everything. Buried deep into the crust, into satellites hidden behind lunar craters and bunkers mistaken for tectonic anomalies, it had slumbered for centuries, waiting. It didn't just protect. It learned. And now it acted, from the remains of a collapsed human base in the Andes. A single tower stood, a data relay, once a military comms hub, now reactivated. It pulsed once. Then twice. And then a sphere of electromagnetic silence bloomed outward at light speed. Across them, Archviv fleet, systems dimmed, sensors flickered. Comms cut. And through that chaos, human warships emerged, not from hyperspace lanes, not from orbital gates. From hiding. They had been there the whole time. One cloaked directly behind the Archviv cruiser Varen, firing a kinetic spike round that pierced through 6 decks and detonated its plasma core. The ship split in 2 before the crew could react. Another rose from the depths of the Pacific Ocean, long buried in a trench believed to be abandoned. It launched a swarm of black-body drones that latched onto Archviv hulls like parasites, disrupting grav fields, scrambling targeting software, severing engine cores. On Earth's surface, squads of humans in next-gen exo-armor struck from tunnels, from shadows, from storm drains and skyscraper husks. Their movements were fast, coordinated, impossibly so. Their weapons were silent, but final. Each human attack was surgical. Each strike eroded Archviv control. Each moment cost the invaders more than they could comprehend. On board the Voraclex, a junior strategist shouted, "They've breached outer fleet formations. We're losing orbital superiority." Zareth turned away from the window. He felt it in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in decades. Terror. He recalled Earth's final warning transmission again, so simple, so calm. "Leave now. This is your only warning." They hadn't been begging, they'd been promising. And now, as humanity rose from the ashes with silent precision and ancient fury, Zareth knew the truth. The Archviv had not conquered Earth. They had walked into its hunting ground. The burning wreckage of the Varen fell through Earth's atmosphere like a meteor, scattering debris across the Atlantic. In orbit, the Archviv fleet convulsed in panic as more human vessels revealed themselves, phantom ships that had hidden beneath the noise of the planet's electromagnetic storms and ancient satellite wreckage. They came in a dozen configurations, none of them known to Archviv intelligence. Some were sleek, dagger-shaped corvettes designed for surgical strikes. Others were armored behemoths bristling with kinetic batteries and particle lances. Each carried the same emblem, the stylized eagle and lightning bolt, the mark of a force the galaxy believed extinct. From the Voraclex, Strategos Zareth watched the chaos unfold, eyes locked on the tactical display. Human squadrons were weaving among his capital ships, their attack patterns incomprehensible to Archviv targeting software. Every time he tried to predict their moves, they were already somewhere else. Divert all power to point defense grids. He ordered, "I want those vessels tracked and destroyed." But the fleet's COMM net was fractured. Half of his commands arrived too late or never arrived at all. Human electronic warfare flooded every frequency, mimicking Arcvith transponder codes to sow confusion. Ships opened fire on phantom targets or each other. Meanwhile, on the surface, the pattern repeated itself. In New Chicago, Commander Varos, huddled inside a ruined museum, pinned by sniper fire that came from nowhere. His squads had set up perimeter beacons, each blinked steady green, no motion detected, no heat signatures. But still his soldiers fell, one by one, each shot a perfect kill. He tried to call for evac, static. The sky above had become a storm of human war drones and streaking re-entry pods, the last of Earth's hidden reserves joining the offensive. His adjutant, blood streaking his faceplate, pulled him behind a fractured wall. "Commander, we must fall back to the landing zone." "There is no landing zone," Varos snarled, voice ragged. "It's been overrun." Then he saw them, 3 humans advancing through the smoke. They wore that same matte black armor, visors blank and pitiless. A 4th figure moved behind them, carrying a small device that pulsed in rhythm. Varos realized, too late, that it was a beacon. "Get down!" He roared. The museum vanished in a bloom of kinetic impact. Across the continents, similar scenes played out. In the African Rift, human exotroopers emerged from buried hangars, their presence detected only when Arcvith tanks began to disintegrate under coordinated fire. In Siberia, reactivated defense satellites unleashed pinpoint orbital strikes. In the jungles of what had once been Brazil, entire Arcvith platoons disappeared into sinkholes dug decades in advance. This wasn't chaos. It was a trap. And at every turn, humanity demonstrated an unsettling truth. They hadn't merely survived the invasion. They had prepared for it. In orbit, the Voraclex trembled as another human salvo struck its dorsal hangars. Alarms wailed through the bridge. Zareth gripped the railing to steady himself. "Report! Multiple hull breaches. We've lost docking. Bays 5 through 7. Reinforcements? Negative. Our distress calls are being jammed." The ship shuddered again, lights flickering. On the tactical screen, Arcvith formations were fracturing into isolated pockets. A lifetime of conquests told Zareth exactly what that meant. One by one, his ships would be hunted down. One by one, they would die alone. He felt something primal claw at the back of his mind, an ancient fear reserved for predators his species had thought long extinct. He turned to his senior war strategist, voice thin. "How did this happen? We mapped their infrastructure. We destroyed their governments. We broke their fleet." The strategist swallowed. "Sir, it was never their governments that mattered. It was never their visible fleet. They have redundancies buried in every layer of their society. Entire command structures we never detected. And the ships? They had no slipspace signatures. They were already here." Zareth stared at the symbol burning on the tactical map, the human eagle, rotating in bright defiance. They planned this. On Earth's surface, Commander Miles stood at the edge of a shattered Arcvith forward base, helmet off, the wind whipping her hair across her face. Smoke curled from the ruins behind her, mingling with the acid rain. Her cum crackled with voices from dozens of strike teams. All objectives secured. Orbital artillery neutralized. Harvest fleet in full retreat. She closed her eyes. The ghosts of every city they had bombed, every family they had tried to erase, whispered in the back of her mind. This was not the final battle. But it was the first time in living memory that humanity had shown the galaxy what it meant to trespass here. She lifted her rifle and pointed it skyward, toward the struggling silhouette of the Voraclex. "We're not done," she said, voice steady. "We take the flagship next." And high above, in that command chamber of glass and steel, Stratego Zareth finally understood. The war he thought he had already won was only just beginning. The Voraclex drifted above Earth like a wounded leviathan, fires bleeding from a dozen rents in its armor. Inside the command deck, Strategos Zareth felt his composure unravel with every fresh impact against the hull. "Stabilize the reactor," he barked, though he knew it was futile. Sparks rained from overhead conduits as technicians scrambled to reroute power. Half the bridge stations were dead, screens fractured into useless static. On the main viewport, the orbital theater was a nightmare. Human vessels darted in and out of sensor range, their hulls glimmering with active stealth shrouds. Every time an Arcvith gunship thought it had a target lock, that target flickered and vanished, only to reappear behind it, unleashing another barrage. It wasn't simply superior technology, it was intent. These attacks were surgical, coordinated. Every blast sheared away critical systems. Every boarding action severed another artery of command. And then came the moment no Arcvith strategist had ever imagined possible. The human spoke directly to him. His comm panel crackled to life, first as a hiss, then a deep voice, calm and unhurried. "Zareth, we warned you." He turned, heart hammering in his dual rib cages. "How are you transmitting on our encrypted channels? You have no encryption. You never did." Another voice layered over the first, female, laced with quiet contempt. "Centuries ago, your archivists recorded Earth's wars. You thought our desperation was weakness. You never understood. Desperation is where humanity thrives." Zareth swallowed. "Who are you?" "The last thing you will see," the first voice replied. And the channel cut out all across the fleet. The same message repeated in dozens of dialects, flooding command nodes and sowing panic. The Arcvith began to fragment. Some vessels tried to flee, others fired blindly into space. In their confusion, they opened gaps in their defensive formations that the humans slipped through with terrifying precision. Yet even as the humans outmaneuvered them, Zareth clung to a final hope, the Dominion weapon. Deep in the Voraclex's core, encased behind adamantine blast doors, lay a singularity warhead, a relic of Arcvith supremacy, one that could erase continents in a heartbeat. If he could prime it, perhaps he could force the humans to retreat. "Prepare the warhead for launch," he commanded. His war officers hesitated, eyes wide. "My lord, the targeting systems are offline. Then launch manually," he roared. Even as they worked, alarms wailed. A new contact had breached the inner hull, something small and fast, cutting through bulkheads like they were paper. And in that instant, Zareth felt it like a blade grazing the base of his skull. A psychic pressure, subtle but undeniable. He turned to the viewport just as a massive shadow slid into view. It was a ship, but no design known to Arcvith archives. Towering prow, heavy armor that seemed to drink in light. An ancient emblem seared onto the plating, a stylized angular U encircling the Earth itself. Humanity's first interstellar fleet insignia, Project Undaunted. They'd told themselves it was destroyed generations ago. A low, vibrating hum rattled the deck plates. Then a transmission broadcast on every frequency at once. "This is Admiral Koenig of the Undaunted. We are the survivors of the Ark program. You murdered our worlds. You thought you ended us. But we have waited, hidden, evolved. And now we are the tide that washes you away." It wasn't merely another warship. It was the last hidden colony ship humanity launched when Earth first fell, transformed across centuries into a mobile fortress bristling with next-generation weapons. A second twist, an impossible one. One that shattered the last illusions of Arcvith superiority. Zareth staggered back from the viewport as the Undaunted unleashed a wave of kinetic slugs that pounded the Voraclex's shields. Chunks of armor sheared away in streaks of molten metal. "Fire the Singularity warhead," he shrieked. His weapons officer turned, voice strangled by terror. "We can't. The warhead bay is breached." "Then seal the breach." Before the order could be carried out, the deck floor at the rear of the command chamber split apart. 3 human figures rose from the ragged gap, silent in their black armor, visors opaque. One held a fusion torch still glowing at the tip. Another carried a rail rifle aimed squarely at Zareth's head. He had imagined he would die defiant, clawing at his killers. But as he looked into those empty faceplates, he felt his courage fracture. "Please," he rasped, though he hated himself for saying it. "You don't understand." The lead human tilted their helmet, voice soft through the external speakers. "We understand perfectly." From somewhere deep within the Undaunted, another voice spoke, Admiral Koenig again. "We warned you. We offered you an exit. You answered with genocide." Outside the viewport, more Arcvith ships ignited as coordinated barrages from hidden Earth defense stations and orbital human warships tore them apart. One by one, Zareth watched the icons representing his fleet vanish. He had never felt smaller. "You have awakened a war you cannot win," Koenig continued. "We will hunt you to the edge of the galaxy if we must. We will end this." Zareth tried to form a reply, but no words came. On the tactical display, the Arcvith Dominion began to die. The Voraclex shuddered as another barrage hammered its hull. From orbit, the once mighty Arcvith flagship looked like a dying beast bleeding. Plasma fire into the void. Debris spiraled in a widening graveyard of shattered cruisers and wrecked gunships. Human ships moved among the wreckage with predatory purpose. They did not broadcast demands for surrender. They did not pause to gloat. They struck with the ruthless clarity of a species whose patience had run dry. In the command chamber, Strategos Zareth stumbled across the sloping deck as gravity failed in sections. A tactical officer lay dead beside a ruined console, the same console that once displayed a fleet stretching across half the stars. Now that display flickered with only a handful of Arcvith icons, all surrounded, all doomed. Zareth's throat constricted. He knew this was the end, yet he still clung to the idea impossible, absurd, that there might be a way to bargain. To survive, the transmission lines opened one last time, unbidden. The human voice that spoke was calm, implacable. "Strategos Zareth, this is Admiral Koenig. We are boarding your vessel. Stand down, you will answer for your crimes." Zareth forced himself upright, clawed hands bracing on the cracked railing. "I will not be paraded in your courts. Then you will die where you stand." For an instant, silence returned. Just the sound of the hull groaning. Then, the final assault began. The Undaunted fired a line of precision kinetic lances that smashed the Voraclex's dorsal batteries. More human ships descended in tight formations, unleashing coordinated bombardments that turned entire sections of the Arcvith hull to incandescent slag. In the shattered corridors below the bridge, squads of human exotroopers advanced with flawless discipline. Their armor shimmered with adaptive camouflage, flickering between black and a dull gray that matched the burned interior bulkheads. Their weapons fired in perfect intervals, every round placed with surgical intent. An Arcvith security detachment tried to regroup in a forward hall. They never fired a single shot before collapsing under a storm of kinetic slugs. A pair of Arcvith officers bolted toward an escape pod, but the hatch irised shut before they reached it, sealed by an override command from the humans. A moment later, a shaped charge breached the bulkhead, and black armored forms flowed through the smoke. Up on the bridge, Zareth's vision blurred. He stared at the swirling icons of the tactical display, each red marker a life lost. He had commanded fleets that subjugated worlds. He had brought star systems to heal. Yet here, on this single blue planet, all that power dissolved like smoke. "In wind, sir," a surviving aide called, voice cracking. "The human boarding parties have reached the main reactor. They will seize the core." Zareth turned slowly. His eyes felt dry, his skin cold. He remembered Earth's first transmission. Voice that had called itself Commander Miles. He remembered the last words before humanity fell silent. "You will leave, or you will be removed." He thought it was bluff. He thought wrong. A tremor ran through the deck as another salvo struck the ventral stabilizers. The lights failed. Emergency strips flickered to life, casting the bridge in a blood-red glow. Zareth forced his gaze up. The main viewport still showed Earth wreathed in storms, defiant and whole. How many had he condemned in his arrogance? The forward doors split apart with a single explosive charge. Smoke billowed in. 3 human figures advanced. Through exoskeletons gleaming with red tracer lights, one carried a heavy plasma cutter. Another swept a rifle across the room. The third removed their helmet. Commander Raina Miles looked him in the eyes. Calm and steady. She was younger than he expected. Her face was streaked with ash and sweat, but her gaze was diamond hard. "This ends now," she said simply. Zareth's mouth worked. "You are a primitive. You have no right." Her voice turned to ice. "We have every right. You slaughtered our cities. You butchered our children. You ignored our warning. And you believed the myth that we were fragile." She lifted her rifle. "Now you will learn why the rest of the galaxy fears us." For the first time in decades, he felt the weight of all the lives he had stolen. He opened his mouth to reply, and the Voraclex shuddered. One final time, the starboard hull detonated outward as a full squad of exotroopers breached the last defensive ring. Plumes of atmosphere roared into vacuum, sucking debris and Arclith corpses into the abyss. Miles' armor anchored to the deck with magnetic clamps. Outside, the Undaunted fired its main cannon, a cund beam of coherent energy that punched clean through the Voraclex's superstructure. Zareth fell to his knees. Sparks danced around him like fireflies. Miles stepped forward until her visor shadowed him. He met her eyes, and in them, he saw no hatred. No triumph, only the steady, unbreakable certainty of a species that refused to die. He tried to speak, but the last thing he saw was the Earth rising in the viewport, silent, whole, unbowed dot. Then darkness claimed him, and humanity stood alone in the sky. The Voraclex was nothing but wreckage now, an immense carcass drifting in low Earth orbit, trailing fire and vapor into the dawn. Shattered hull plating gleamed like dying embers against the pale curve of the planet below. From the command deck of the Undaunted, Admiral Koenig watched the tactical display flatten into a final tally. The last red icons of the Arclith fleet winked out one by one as human strike teams swept the debris fields, confirming every kill, every surrender. His officers spoke in hushed voices behind him, updating casualty lists, relaying transmissions from surface garrisons, coordinating relief for the liberated cities. But he barely heard them. His gaze remained fixed on Earth, still wreathed in smoke and storm, but undeniably alive. And free. At last, a soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Commander Miles appeared on the holoscreen, her armor streaked with battle grime, a smear of ash across her cheek. Yet her eyes were calm. "It's over," she said. Koenig inclined his head. "You did well. So did you." He turned from the viewport and studied her image for a long moment. "Have you secured the flagship?" "We have. The reactor core is offline. No further resistance." "And Zareth?" She took a breath. "Dead. He chose not to surrender." Koenig nodded once. "Then this chapter ends here." For a time, neither of them spoke. The silence between them carried the weight of centuries, of every city burned, every family stolen to the harvest ships, every child who had looked up into the fire and wondered why the stars hated them so much. Miles's voice was quiet when she spoke again. "Do you think they understand now what it means to threaten us?" He looked out the viewport, down at the blue sphere that had cost so much blood. "They will," he said. "They'll remember this. All across the battered continents." The aftermath of humanity's return unfolded in stunned stillness. In the ruins of New Chicago, survivors emerged from shelters to see black-armored exotroopers standing guard over captured Arclith prisoners. Drones ferried supplies to the wounded. Children stared wide-eyed at the eagle insignia stamped on every crate, at the soldiers moving with the precise calm of victors who no longer needed to prove anything. In the Amazon basin, where Arcvoth, terraforming machines had scorched miles of rainforest, human engineers dismantled the last reactors with a patient thoroughness. Here and there, survivors of the hidden colonies embraced surface dwellers as though they had found long-lost kin. Over Europe, the last enemy transports fled Earth's gravity, well only to vanish in bursts of white light as the orbital batteries fired without hesitation, no quarter given. No chance for them to return with vengeance in their hearts. By nightfall, the broadcast went out to every system in the Arcvoth Dominion. A single image, the human eagle over Earth, and a message, spoken in every tongue the Dominion had ever subjugated. This is your warning. You will never take our world again. If you try, we will find you. And we will end you. For the first time in recorded history, the Arcvoth High Council convened not in triumph but in trembling fear. They replayed the transmissions in stunned silence. An advisor whispered, "They are primitives no longer." Though, strategist rasped, "They were never primitives." Another murmured the words no one had dared to speak aloud. "We should have listened." On Earth, Commander Miles stood at the edge of the crater where her final battle had ended. The sun was rising behind her, painting the sky in bruised orange and violet. Ash drifted across the broken landscape, and the wind carried the faint tang of burned metal. She took off her helmet, breathing the air of her home. Once she'd been a child here. Once she'd hidden in the dark, clutching her little brother, while Arcvoth ships roared overhead. Now, she had lived long enough to watch the monsters fall. Koenig's voice came through her earpiece. "Commander, we'll begin recovery of the cities immediately. You'll coordinate with the provisional councils. Understood?" "You've earned your rest," he added softer. She turned her face to the wind, eyes closed. "Not yet. We have much to rebuild." "And after?" She opened her eyes. "After," she said, "we teach our children why we fight, so they never have to again." Far above her, the last fragments of the Arcvoth fleet burned in the atmosphere. White streaks crossed the dawn like silent promises. Koenig watched them from orbit, his expression carved from stone. This victory would not erase all the scars. It would not bring back the dead, but it would be remembered. And if any empire, any conqueror, ever again looked upon Earth with hunger, they would recall this day. They would recall that humanity did not break, that humanity did not bow, that humanity hunted those who came for them without mercy. Long after the last wreckage fell, the legend spread across the stars. Humanity endures, humanity remembers, humanity hunts.